Alright guys and girls, it's jerninghgam here. The coronavirus numbers today are 129 plus 95 confirmed cases of COVID-19 across, compared with 1,406 recorded yesterday. Future free deaths, the total numbers of deaths in the UK to 41,504. You guys heard of that? Nicola Sturgeon says new restrictions in place are part of Glasgow, Scotland. COVID-19 spike. Health Secretary Matt Hancock says we must do everything in our power to protect the UK against the second wave of coronavirus. The government launching a pay isolation able to people with COVID-19 claims, 130 for 10 a day self-isolation. People near a car. Speaks chief Speaction second mistake and apologised after seeking hands. College, I don't know what they're saying on this news. There's already been a second spike in some parts of the UK anyway, so I don't know what they're talking about. Guys talking about social distancing.
Began in Wuhan, taking stock of the human cost in the UK and around the world, and considering whether we are now learning to live with the disease. We begin with the situation here. Whilst the government's trying to get people back out and about across the UK, it seems the country may be more cautious than we'd hoped. New data shows post-lockdown footfall has been higher in coastal and market towns and cities such as Manchester and Birmingham. Sky's Roland Manthorpe takes a closer look.
City centre businesses are pleading with people to get back to the office, but the latest data shows there's still a lockdown effect in some areas. The week after Britain was told to stay at home, footfall in commercial areas fell an astonishing 83%. And while it began to recover when non-essential retail opened in June, it is still 40% below last year's levels. The effect is strongest in central London and cities like Manchester, Leeds and Birmingham, where levels are still 50 to 60% below what they were last year. But recovery has been quicker in coastal towns like Bournemouth, as people enjoy days out, and market towns like Sleaford, and, interestingly, in outer London. This is one of the problems for city recovery, the lack of people using public transport. Straight after lockdown, London's Tube, which is this yellow line here, fell just 4% compared to pre-lockdown levels, and it still has just 1/3 of its previous passengers. But people are back in their cars. This is TomTom data showing congestion, and you can see it in towns like Middlesbrough, where the light blue overtakes the yellow. It's matching last year's levels. The exceptions, Manchester and Leicester, where the yellow is still above the blue, have both been subject to local lockdowns. Research at Oxford suggests that across the country, just 1 in 5 people are now staying at home, down from almost 1 in 2 at the start of the lockdown. So overall, people are moving around again. But it's where they're going that matters, and they're not going to city centres. For the government and many businesses, the strength of that trend is becoming a big worry.
That's Roland Manthorpe there. Well, Transport for London has released the figures from this morning's commutes compared to this time last year. The number of people using public transport in the English capital is down dramatically. Nonetheless, today marks the busiest day since before the lockdown. Well, let's turn to Sky's Sadia Chowdhury, who's live at Waterloo Station in central London. Sadia, welcome to you. Ordinarily the rush hour, not so today.
Not at all. Boris Johnson spoke about
Waterloo Centre, London.
People returning to work, and we know that schools have reopened, which gives parents the freedom to go back to work. But
Transport for London, it's had 650,000 borders on businesses morning, which upper 6 on last week.
Concourse is usually ram-packed with people ready to go home, standing very closely with each other. But look at it today. It's almost completely empty. If anything, it looks a bit like a bank holiday Monday or a very late Sunday afternoon. Waterloo Station is usually very busy. It's one of the UK's busiest stations. About 100 million entries and exits are made here every year. And these are pre-COVID numbers, of course. That means that about 250,000 people travel through this station every day. It's not just Waterloo and Waterloo East Station, of course. There's also underground platforms here for the Northern and the Jubilee line and the Waterloo and City line. These crisscross across London for commuters. Now, the platforms down there are also very similar, very empty. And I can tell you that during this morning's rush hour, Transport for London said around 600,000 people tapped in and out of the tube. That number is up 8% from last week, but down 72% from this time last year. Bus usage also this morning was less than half of what it usually is at this time last year. And it's not just in the stations. Outside the station, the areas around restaurants remain closed. Of course, the Royal Festival Hall and the National Theatre and the Old Vic Theatre all closed. In fact, some of the businesses, if you go online, they come up as they're online, they're open. But when you come here, the shutters are closed, the restaurants are closed. An indication perhaps that there's the intention for people to get back to work and get things back to normal. But the reality is that we're very, very far away from normal.
Sadia, thanks very much. Well, we're answering or attempting to answer some of your questions regarding some of the biggest questions facing the UK and other countries around the world as a result of the pandemic. We'll have a half-hour programme, 6:30 tomorrow, starting. A panel of experts in behavioural science, medicine, and child health. If you like, send in your questions, if you have them, via Sky News Twitter, using the hashtag #SkyNews, or WhatsApp to the number you see on screen there. President Trump's accused the media of fueling protests in the United States. The president's just arrived in Kenosha in Wisconsin, where there's been unrest since a white police officer shot a black man, Jacob Blake, in the back. Speaking as he set off, Mr. Trump criticised the press's lack of reporting of the death of a man in Portland who belonged to a right-wing group. Well, let's turn to our correspondent, James Matthews, who's in Kenosha in Wisconsin. James, welcome to you. We saw there was a vigil, still is presumably happening there now. The Reverend Jesse Jackson was addressing the cameras. President Trump's on his way.
Yeah, that's right. A few blocks away, President Trump is coming to Kenosha. He'll spend a couple of hours speaking to law enforcement officers, surveying the damage. I am at the place, the very street where Jacob Blake was shot dead a week ago past Sunday. You can see it's a neighbourhood community event. A lot going on here with many speakers. We've heard from the uncle of Jacob Blake, but I'm delighted to say I'm joined live now by Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jackson, many thanks for your time. Tell me, what do you think of Donald Trump's visit here?
He will not address issues of reconciliation. And this is a 2016 fireman, a 9 black, 2 policemen, 2 black, inequality, living in the margins of society. We deserve better.
US Donald Trump,
He come looking for
Dodge City, Kenosha,
we're not having a demonstration day.
Winston, a black man,
He wants to
Jacob Blanky, was shot in the back of police.
He's become a national hero.
USA.
We deserve better than that.
What do you think the implications are of Donald Trump's trip here and the message that he is sending?
That was not fear, wasn't followed by hope. His whole approach is negative and threatening, but it's consistent. It's Charlottesville equating Nazi with the Jewish people in Charlottesville. They was on the borders. It's a pattern. We have a 60-day countdown. We marched about King in 63. We didn't have the right to vote. We can determine our destiny in 60 days.
What are your observations on what many see as racial injustice in this country? It's something you've lived, you've studied, you've been a part of for decades. Where is America now?
I mean, the freedom of our lives and not the equality of our lives. It's about equality. That's why I said this city of 250 firemen, 8 blacks, 200 police, 3 black. That's their job. That's looting our jobs, looting hope. The man shot in the back 7 times. Police still walking free. That's a lynch mob mentality. The kid comes across state lines, an AR-15, and shoots and kills 2 people. He's about to become a national hero to some.
What are your fears for the weeks and months ahead?
If he's successful, people react to him and become violent. That would be a key to his victory. We must be disciplined, not violent, and focused on the main thing, which today is COVID-19. That's the real killing of 6 million people testing positive, 103 Americans dead, 83,000. So we keep our focus on what matters.
Donald Trump sloganizes law and order. Joe Biden takes a different approach to campaigning. Is he taking the correct approach? How do you see the competing campaigns in the election race?
We need law and justice. They've shot in the back 7 times, and the shooter is rewarded with consolation rather than shot. That's not a good thing. 2 people killed, the young killer, become the hero. Not a good thing.
Finally, if Donald Trump wins the election in November, where does this country stand?
Unimaginably hostile, polarized. America's lost in the world, within our own country, in the world. America, Europe, America, Asia. If you were to win, we'd become an isolated country. We become weaker, not stronger.
Reverend Jackson, very grateful for your time. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that's the view of Reverend Jackson, a veteran of the struggle for racial justice in the United States. He has been speaking at a variety, or there's been a number of news conferences here today, Colin. You can take a look at the scene behind me. Very busy, something like 200-300 people here. As I say, this was the very street a week ago past Sunday in which Jacob Blake was shot. The community has come out here today to send a positive message to coincide this event with the visit of Donald Trump, who's going to spend around a couple of hours here, as I say, speaking to law enforcement officers, inspecting damage. He did speak to the media on his way here, and yesterday he said very controversial things. He spoke about the 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who had a live weapon on the streets of Kenosha and shot 2 people dead. He's facing a double murder charge. President Trump didn't quite offer a defense of that youngster when he was asked to condemn the shooting, but it sounded something like it. It was certainly a plea in mitigation, crafted almost a lawyer's defense, saying that he was under attack at the time. I can tell you that has aggravated opinion in this neighborhood. You heard Reverend Jackson saying it was not right.
We're going to get it fixed up. We're going to help the people rebuild their businesses in Kenosha, and it's just been a great state, great people, and we're getting it straightened out. The violence has stopped from the time the National Guard came. I mean, literally when they set their foot on this location, it stopped. So we'll see you over there. We're going to do a round table after that, and we'll have plenty to talk about during the day. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, President Trump briefly addressing the cameras. He may, as he indicated there, have more to say later on, heading into Kenosha, not very far away from where James Matthews, our correspondent, was talking to the Reverend Jesse Jackson there, and also explaining that Jacob Blake, whose uncle was talking a while ago to the cameras, addressing the cameras there, lies still ill from those 7 gunshot wounds. The Wisconsin state governor, Tony Evers, had urged President Trump not to come to Kenosha, saying it would hinder our healing, as he put it. But as you say, as you saw just there, the president's arrived in Kenosha. Joe Biden last night in the speech said he was stoking racial tensions for electoral advantage. Well, let's get the latest sports now from Jamie.
Well, if you want to watch the rest of the sports, guys and girls, go on to the news channel. Thank you for joining this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. Another short video right now. Thanks for joining me. Back again soon. Peace. Take it easy.